guys. Welcome to the Karen Carrington Show. My name is Karen Carrington. I am a talk show host, mental health advocate, author, and a certified personal development trainer. The Karen Carrington Show launched back in 2017, and we talk about our ups, we talk about our downs, we talk about our adversity, trials, tribulations, and how we overcome. So guests from all walks of life share their vulnerability in a safe, judgment-free zone. I am super excited for season 10. Season 10 is called A Black Man's Voice. A Black Man's Voice launched a few seasons ago, and we've been talking about stories from Black men from all around the world, where it's a place where they can share their vulnerabilities and messagings that empower other Black men. And today I am super excited to have Ola join me. Ola, are you here with me?
Hi, Karen. I'm here.
Hi, I'm so glad that you're here joining us on the Karen Carrington Show. Tell the viewers exactly who you are and what you're all about.
Of course. So my name is Ola. I'm a psychotherapy intern currently working at Integra Health Center in downtown Toronto. In terms of my therapeutic style, I come from a person-centered perspective, which basically means I use unconditional positive regard, which means I'm always looking at you in a positive light and trying to understand where you come from. I put the client in the driver's seat. I have an anti-oppressive framework. I'm trauma informed and culturally sensitive as well. And my story, in my humble opinion, is particularly significant because I rose from the ashes of my own mental health difficulties, which were fairly severe, to be quite honest. And I think that has only empowered me as a therapist to really understand the nuances of what goes on during our lowest moments.
I love that. Thank you so much for that introduction. I think it's really important that people know the approach that you take. What you said, is trauma informed and culturally relevant. I also noticed that you always say that the client is the expert of their own life. I love that. Can you expand on that? The client being the expert of their own life.
Absolutely. One of the things that I really was drilled into me during school is conducting therapy is different from simply giving advice. And when we give advice, we often want to tell the person what to do. As a therapist, from my approach, I'm more inclined to help guide the person to their own answers that make sense in the context of their life with reference to them. Since their life is the source material, they truly are the expert. So I'm asking them for help. I'm asking them for guidance, and I'm allowing the client to direct where we go, while also bringing my expertise in problem solving to the fore.
Mm. And, saying that, what I want to jump right into as well is you said that you have a story as well. I believe we all have a story. Now, there's also a step of having a story and having the courage to share that story. Ola, in my media career, I have interviewed hundreds of men around the world, and the response I usually get is, they're afraid to share their story at first. They're afraid to look weak, or they don't want to be judged. In your opinion, why is that?
I think the answer rings true for all men, but then there's a particular element I'll discuss that comes with being a Black man. I think masculinity generally isn't associated with vulnerability. We're thought to be protectors. We're thought to be strong, stable, rational. Being in touch with your emotions generally doesn't come into play here because your emotions are supposed to be under control. I think as a Black man, historically there have been systematic efforts to underline our masculinity at times. So there tends to be an element of hyper masculinity that comes about with being a Black man, and the need to be overly masculine, or what I just described in a traditional sense, masculine. So I think, for those reasons, being emotional, being vulnerable, being in touch with the traditionally feminine elements of one's personality are seen to be non-masculine or weak.
And what I love about what you and I have in common is on my platform, Black men feel comfortable speaking because it's a safe, judgment free zone. And also the environment that you've created for your clients, is a safe, judgment free zone. How important is it having people feel safe when they're sharing their story?
You brought up, use a great term, judgment free. I think it's highly important. And when we consult the research literature on counseling, therapy in general, we find one of the most important things um, throughout any kind of therapeutic orientation is what we term the therapeutic alliance. And what that basically means is the relationship you have with your clients. The common factors across all types of therapy tend to be among the most important to client change. So as the environment you establish is really of paramount importance, and one of the most important things you'll do regardless of any personal style you have or anything like that. So really, how you connect to people is key to the success of all you do as a clinician.
I love that. And what really drew me to you is your story and how open you were sharing that. What I would love to do now is for you to share with my audience your story.
Absolutely. The year is 2014, not a mask in sight. Um, I'm returning home from a trip to Montreal with my best friends in the world. We have a blast. It was my 24th birthday and one of my other pals' 24th birthday, just around the same time as well. I get home, I come back to reality, and I'm just behaving bizarre in a bizarre fashion. I'm saying strange, suspicious things. I'm suspicious of other people. I'm a bit off. And, I lived at the time at home. I had an older brother, a younger sister who I'm very close with. And, they're noticing that I'm being a bit odd. And what's very interesting to me is who really dug into this was my older brother, who is less mental health inclined than, say, myself and my sister, who are educated in it. And he was just like, did you do some stuff you weren't supposed to out there and whatnot? And I seemed like I was on drugs. That's how I was behaving. So he said, we're going to go to the hospital because you're not yourself. I went. I was very sarcastic to them and everything like that. And they're like, oh, he's fine. And one person, I don't know if this is good practice or not, she said, you'll be back. And I was, again, for continued.
A person in the hospital.
Yes.
Like one of the care. Okay.
Yes, exactly. And for it was continued bizarre behavior. Again, it seemed like I was on drugs. He literally thought I had done stuff that I wasn't supposed to, called my friends and was asking them. He took me back to the hospital. And then this time was different. I started like, not even just saying things, but doing things. Like I was grabbing things and being disruptive. And, they asked me to lie down on a bed. I did. I was somewhat coherent, somewhat myself and somewhat not. And strapped me down, gave me a needle, just like in the movies, like they do. And next thing I know, I woke up in an inpatient unit at a mental health hospital. I didn't know that. I got up, and I was so drugged, if you will, from the injection. I fell and I chipped my front tooth, and that's a memory that's stood out to me of just feeling lost. And Fast forward, I was eventually diagnosed with bipolar disorder. There was a long journey to that. And the diagnosis was ultimately relieving to get some semblance of understanding what was going on.
Wow. And for those viewers who may not know, can you explain what bipolar is?
Absolutely. So you have kind of people think of it as like mood swings, but that's not really accurate. You can almost think of it as like a change in energy level in the sense that you have highs, they call
Mhm,
them, to use terminology, either mania or hypomania, which
mhm.
is basically, you act like you're on drugs. Like I was showering in my clothes and things like that. And, having ideas of reference, meaning, I'm watching something on TV and thinking they're talking to me or things like that. There's that side to it. But then you shift to being depressed, traditional depression, and how you would normally think of it. So you fluctuate between either being that super high, which is the mania, or slightly, elevated mood and irritability and things like that, which is hypomania. So one of those two, and then you shift to being depressed. Yeah.
Wow. And being a Black man, it's not often spoke about, right? So when you were diagnosed, what was that feeling? Was there shame? Was there embarrassment? Were you relieved to find out? What was that emotion?
I was personally very relieved, but it was definitely like a hush hush thing. Only my immediate family and one friend at the time knew, and they're the only ones who saw me in the hospital. And it was like I didn't want to tell anyone. Um, when I got the diagnosis, I was extremely depressed. Like before that, and continuing when I had the diagnosis, I was extremely depressed, and that was the harder piece for me personally to deal with because I'm a very high energy person, so it was very different from me. So it was like I didn't want to be around anyone, much less tell them anything. And I remember saying, I saw a psychiatrist. I said to him, I don't want to see anyone because when they're like, "How are you?" Like I'm just like, ah. And he's like, it's just a typical question. You don't have to go into detail and things like that. And that's something that stood out to me. So, seemingly simple things to deal with become a challenge when you're in these states.
Yeah. And so when you mentioned you didn't want to tell anyone, why is that?
Um, Judgment. I think there is, the general stigma, but also the stigma within the Black community specifically. And myself, I'm half Caribbean, Jamaican, half Nigerian, and Canadian born. So I'm dealing with all these different cultures, which some people think of Black as kind of monolithic, but it's not. I'm dealing with these different cultures and, different perceptions. Like, people just in our community can just clump everything together and be like, oh, he's crazy.
Right.
That's kind of
And sweep it under the rug. Let's not talk about
exactly,
it. And
exactly,
right.
exactly. And I'm very blessed to have made pretty much a full recovery, and did a couple things with my life. But if that wasn't the case, people, he's crazy, he's done. Like there's that fear within our community, from friends to relationships to extended family. It's
Yeah. And
all
you said you did a couple of things with your life. And now in your profession is a huge thing that you did with your life. Do you feel that perhaps, I love the way you segue into that. Was it based on your experiences that you went through is why you decided to go into that profession?
No, I was already I was already pursuing mental health and psychology, and it was just a hugely ironic twist of fate
Mm,
that, I ended up with my own personal diagnosis. And, I think it just empowered me in what
Mm.
I'm doing, in fact, as opposed to having guided me there.
Whoa, I love that. And I think it's really empowering for others, other young Black men to see you in this successful role because, you know, rich research shows that there's not very many Black men, therapists, psychotherapists in the field. And so seeing you in that role, I believe, is really inspiring for our youth and for, what would you say to a young Black man out there who wants to pursue this, but may feel it's not for him? He doesn't see other people that he identifies with. What would you tell him?
You're even more important than you realize. Your experiences are valid. I think very often we don't think of our challenges as mental health related. A lot of the times, our experiences aren't presented in textbooks or shows and movies. When you hear the word trauma, you might think of a Vietnam vet, not, your friend got shot down and murdered. You don't realize you're dealing with trauma. You just think that's the thing that happens where I'm from. We need to start bringing the appropriate terminology to our experiences. And, your voice is so important, and your expertise and what you learn is so integral to doing that.
Amen. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's so empowering. Your story is so inspiring. Your journey is not done yet. I can't wait to have you back for more of season 10 of Black Men's Voice. Ola, thank you so much for being here with me today.
My absolute pleasure and honor.
Yeah, I really believe that these conversations matter. Black men's voice matters. And it doesn't only matter in Black History Month or after the death of George Floyd, or we have hashtags and we put up a Black square. I believe that these conversations need to always continue. And that's exactly why I have been doing this for years on the Karen Carrington Show. These stories need to continue for generations to come. Black men need a voice. They need a safe space, a platform where they could share, they can be heard, and it's a safe zone meant for them to uplift each other and hear each other's stories and be able to get the help that they need and the help that they deserve. So that being said, as you guys know, on the Karen Carrington Show, we always end off with an affirmation from my book. Today, we're going to take an affirmation from my book, Shame Over, a conversation about men's mental health. And this is a book that I wrote exactly for that. Men of all walks of life. Each chapter has something in there for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reference some of my favorite affirmations in here. Let me pull it up. Today, we're going to take it from affirmation number 7 and affirmation number 34. And it says, I hold a positive mental outlook on my life. My mental health is a priority. I'll repeat that for you again. I hold a positive mental outlook on my life. My mental health is a priority. So I want you guys to repeat that to yourself in the mirror. My mental health is a priority. Make that a priority in your life. So that is it for the Karen Carrington Show. Until next time, same place, same positive vibes. Love you guys.